hurt itself. So they're not adapted to this environment, they're not adapted to this climate, thus they wouldn't survive here. So if climate change continues to heat up and Antarctica becomes extremely warm, then penguins are not going to be able to survive. Reptiles. Reptiles, it's the same concept. Reptiles are all adapted to their individual environments. So you have snakes of all different types. You have sea snakes, they live in the oceans, they are well adapted to the oceans. You have anacondas, they live in water as well, however it's fresh water, and they're very large and well adapted to their environment. And then you have snakes like rattlesnakes and other desert type snakes that are well adapted to the desert and well adapted to the dry heat rather than oceans or water or fresh water. So they're well adapted for their individual environment. And if you were to take any of those different reptiles and put them in another environment, they wouldn't be able to survive. During climate change, and due to this climate change and this quick change in the environment, those areas are not going to exist as long, or exist much longer, because increasing sea levels are going to flood certain areas, causing certain areas to become salt water, where maybe the anaconda lives and now it's living in salt water and it can't survive in salt water and it dies. Or a rattlesnake is living in a desert relatively close to a sea or an ocean, and the levels rise, and now it's living underwater, it can't survive underwater. Or it becomes too cold or too hot for one of these creatures to be able to survive, and it overheats and it dies. Alright, so talking about that, extreme environments, well, let's talk about extremophiles. Extremophiles can survive in extreme environments. So if the temperatures of the Earth are increasing, and there's more acid because of acid rain, and things of that nature, okay, so extremophiles should be able to survive in that, right? Yes and no. So thermophiles, those that like to live in hot weather, will survive perfectly fine as the temperatures of the Earth increase. Acidophiles that live in acid, they're going to do perfectly fine. But extremophiles that like to live in cold climates, like inside of ice or in basic environments, they're not going to be able to survive at all, and they're going to end up dying off, because if there's no ice for the extremophile to survive in, then it's not going to be able to survive. If everything's acidic instead of basic, that basic extremophile is not going to be able to survive. Now, humans. Humans are a huge exception to everything I've been talking about. Humans have the ability to adapt. Humans can, without going through thousands and thousands of years of evolution, adapt to their environment. There is nowhere on this planet that humans cannot survive. And I know some people are thinking, oh, well, what about in magma? Or what about underwater? Or, things of that nature. We have people who have developed suits that we can handle magma in. We have the technology to handle magma in our hands. It's fine. So, excluding that, underwater. We have people who live underwater 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's called a submarine. We can live in any environment. We have people who live at the North Pole, who live at the South Pole. We have people who live at the highest peak of the highest mountain. We have all of these things. We live in all of these environments. We live in every environment. We have the capability and the technology, and it's all due to our intelligence. We are smart enough to be able to develop something so we can survive. We can develop tools. We can develop different types of technology to allow us to survive. I mean, we live in space. No other animal that we know of naturally lives in space. So we will be fine, theoretically. So, adaptation or die. You know, as the environment is changing, if you do not change with the environment, you don't survive. Your species will go extinct. If you change with the environment, and you adapt, and your gene pool moves with what the environment currently is at the time, then you will survive. And then there's the example that's like the humans, the versatile. Okay, we have the ability to survive just about anywhere at any time. That's what this example is. This is more closely related to what humans are, and this is more closely related to what other living things are. So they adapt with their environment. They can't adapt immediately, but they move with their environment. And then humans, we don't move with the environment. We have adapted to be able to survive in any environment. All right. So through these adaptations, you evolve, you become a new species eventually. If you don't, you eventually become extinct. Theoretically, species also become extinct when they evolve into a new species. However, they have ancestors and have survived. So it depends on how you look at it. But for example, the original mammal. There's many more mammals on the earth today, but the original mammal no longer exists. It evolved into other species and has allowed for other species to exist. So despite them going extinct, they in a way sort of exist in our DNA, kind of an idea. So it's better for evolution to occur than for species to just go extinct, so that those species can in a way survive. Currently, the list of endangered species in the United States on the Fish and Game website is around 1,400 species in the United States that are protected. That list is growing every year, and it's because of the invasiveness of humans cutting down forests, hunting things to extinction, and then climate change. Things can't survive in the heat. Things can't survive because water levels have been rising. All of these things. And then there's the number of extinct species is increasing every year as well. Extinct species could not adapt to the environment. They could not cope with what the world is throwing at them, and they eventually died off. The endangered species, so like polar bears, they're dying off, and they will not be able to survive because they don't have their hunting grounds. The ice caps are melting because their environment where they normally live is being destroyed. They can no longer survive, and because of that, they are dying off, and that's why they're endangered. And then eventually, they will become extinct. So, what does all of this mean in the end